What's up? Welcome to Wine School. I'm Mike. With me as always, Eric. Special guest today, we got Christo, Pete, and we're going to talk about Bordeaux. Before that, a quick word from our sponsor, Pete.
Canella Liqueurs.
Awesome flavored, cinnamon flavored liqueurs, so check them out. Canella Liqueurs. All right, so today we're going to drink some Bordeaux. And one of the things that I think we hear a lot about is the magic of Bordeaux, the expensive Bordeaux, and the mystery of what Bordeaux is. We're going to try to demystify a little bit of that for you today. So the first thing that we need to understand is Bordeaux is a region in France. And Bordeaux as a region produces lots of wine, a ton of it. More wine than all of Australia produces put together. Most of it is regular everyday drinking wine, but there's an upper echelon of Bordeaux that are these magical, hyper expensive wines that are very, very sought after by people. Now, one of the things that we want to talk about with Bordeaux is the grapes. Like what kind of grapes go into Bordeaux? And there's 5 grapes that are allowed. There's Cabernet, there's Merlot, there's Cab Franc, there's Malbec, and there's Petit Verdot. Technically, you can also put Carmenere in it, but there's really no Carmenere left in growing in Bordeaux today. So it's mostly those 5 grapes, and generally speaking, it tends to be either mostly Cab or mostly Merlot. Now, the area of Bordeaux is shaped kind of like a Y, where there's the Gironde estuary comes out of the ocean and then kind of splits into 2 rivers, the Garonne and the Dordogne. And so viewed kind of from the top, you have a lot of wineries on the left bank of the river, a lot of wineries on the right bank of the river. Generally speaking, the left bank makes Cab. Generally speaking, the right bank makes Merlot. But there's always exceptions, and the winemakers can use those 5 grapes any way they want. So that's a little bit of the history of Bordeaux. But what do we want to focus today on are the laws around Bordeaux. Because I think this is what gets ridiculously confusing. And we've talked on Wine School before about Burgundy and the way that the Napoleonic Code came in and impacted the ownership and the transfer of vineyards and splintered it. Bordeaux, it happened completely differently. So we'll take you on that journey. So here's what happened. 1855, there was the World Exposition was in Paris, and Napoleon III said, we need to classify and rate all of France's wines, figure out what the best ones are, and bring them to this exposition. And so he got this team together and said, go do this. Gave them a couple years to do it. They were supposed to do all of France. They ended up doing the left bank of Bordeaux only. So, because they found it to be a ridiculously difficult undertaking. And they argued about it, and they went back and forth, and at the end of the day, they decided that they were going to really just rate things based on how expensive they were. whatever the prices were, like those were the best.
Sounds like Napa.
It's very, very similar to Napa. And they divided it into what they called the rated growths. And there's 5 levels. There's first growth, second growth, third growth, fourth growth, fifth growth. Or Premier Cru, Deuxième Cru, Troisième Cru, and so on and so forth. And of all the wines they looked at, they only put 61 of them into one of those top 5 categories. The top one, the Premier Cru, the first growth, there's only 5 wineries that fall into that. And those are probably one of the more expensive wines that you'll find in the world. And these are names that you've heard of. It's Chateau Latour, Chateau Lafite, Chateau Margaux. Interestingly enough, there was there's a winery called Chateau Mouton Rothschild, which was owned by the Baron Rothschild, the Rothschild family. He got rated second growth. And he had a ton of money and was pissed and bitched about it for 50 years more or less. And so finally in like 1972, the French government said, okay, you can be a first growth too. So technically there were only 4, but they kind of bumped him up from 2 to 1 because he bitched and complained. So, sorry, but that's been the only change that's happened since 1855. So that's the system. Now, what is different about this system than the system in Burgundy? Well, in Burgundy, they rate the vineyards. Here, they rated the wineries. So if you own the winery, your winery is considered to be, whatever it is, first growth, second growth, whatever. There are no rules about what you can do with the winery. So you could go out and you could buy a ton more vineyards and make wine in your winery. It's still first growth, second growth, whatever. Mm-hmm. Also, this was the winery's rating in 1855. How many of those do you think have been sold or not kept up? Or the wineries fell into hardships or whatever. So there's big arguments about whether this system holds true today. If the winery that was, second best in 150 years ago, are they still really producing the second best wine? Did they go and buy a bunch of bullshit vineyards that don't produce as good of grapes? And I mean, who knows? The bottom line is the system is the way it is, but it's very different than Burgundy, where you have a vineyard and that's it. There's no way to make more vineyard. Here, you have a winery, and the wineries are rated. So that's led to a lot of debate, and what's happened are that the people who are the first growth and the second growth, they don't want to change the system. Why would you, right? Mm-hmm. So they've tried to hold it pristine, and the other people who aren't rated, they've kind of said, well, fine, we're on the outside, we're going to do something different. We'll try a different marketing approach or whatever. So anyway, so that's a little bit of history of Bordeaux, and this is why you'll see people talking about first growth, second growth, or premier crus, deuxième crus. And so today, we're drinking a fifth growth, because first growths are about, I don't know, a couple $1,000s a bottle. We were going to do that for wine school. But specifically, what are we drinking, Eric? You want to tell us a little bit about this wine?
Absolutely. So today we're drinking this Chateau Auberge Liberal Pauillac, pronounced perfectly French, of course, with a Swedish-American accent. It's a very exciting bottle, though. It's one of the original 18 fifth growths, and this winery back then was actually owned by the Liberal family, and hence the name of the bottle. The wine has since changed hands. The winery has changed hands a couple of times, and today it's actually run by this 40-year-old woman, Claire Villard, and she started her doctoral studies in physics and chemistry, but after her parents died in an accident, she decided to move back to Bordeaux and pursue this wine business, and worked her way up over the years, and now she runs this beautiful winery.
And I think this is like right next door to one of the first grows, right? The wineries kind of butt up against each other. I believe
it is, yeah.
So the terroir is pretty similar between a first growth and this. They're just, there's a wall between them. So this obviously probably pretty decent. 2006, it's a little old, and we've decanted it for a while. So let's get our noses in there. This is a left bank wine, so it should be more heavily Cabernet based, but it probably has some Merlot, maybe some Cab Franc. I don't know.
Yeah, I think typically the mix they're using in these are 70% Cab.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Let's drink it.
What year is this one?
It's a 2006.
So 2005 was a brilliant year for French wine. 2006 was not terrible, but not quite as good as 05. I find this to be delightful.
It's delicious.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's funny. I drink a lot of Bordeaux, and I find that my palate across them, it's pretty diverse. Like some of them I think are fantastic, and some of them I think are overpriced nonsense. Mm. This one's delightful.
It's very well balanced.
Very well balanced, good use of oak. I definitely get that black fruit, that black cassis, black currant, but some light herbaceousness as well.
Yeah, a little bit of a cherry and plum, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And then my favorite, that earthiness of the European wines.
Yeah, I'm a big fan as
I
well.
love that.
It's beautiful.
That soil,
Yeah.
that
That's my favorite part.
forest floor.
Mhm.
I almost get like a. This is gonna sound funny. I almost get like a ashtray out of a car. Smell. That doesn't sound like it would be delightful, but I get a little bit of that. I don't.
Anything in moderation, right?
Right.
And tannins are they're relatively strong, yeah.
Yeah. Tannins are good, but the acids.
alcohol and the acids aren't.
No, it's well balanced. It's delightful. We could drink this all day. I think we decanted this for about an hour, which I think is probably right about the right time for a Bordeaux that's 10 years old.
It's delish. How much is this bottle?
So interestingly enough, so you look at the rated gross, and the market has figured out how which of these are actually really good and which one aren't. And so you'll see, the first gross, they tend to sell $1,000, $2,000 a bottle, and the Chinese are buying a lot of them. But you get into the second through fifth gross, and there's a pretty wide range. Like you can get rated gross, second, third gross for $50, $60, $70, and there's some fifth gross that are considered to be really, really good that might be hundreds of dollars. So there's that, and then there's the year. In Napa, or we drink California wines, the years kind of don't really matter that much. It's always kind of sunny, and there's
Similar.
There's spectacular vintages, and then there's excellent vintages, and that's kind of your gamut, right? In Bordeaux, there's a lot of frost one year, and then the next year it's awesome. So, like the 05 Aubage Liberal will probably run you $100. The 06, I think this bottle was $60, maybe
Somewhere $50, $60.
$50, $60 ish. But if you went back to like a brilliant year like in 1982 or something, this bottle could be $500. So it ranges. What I would suggest, if you're interested in Bordeaux, is go down and try to find some of these rated gross. The third and fourth and fifth gross tend to be pretty approachable price wise, and figure out what years to get. I find Bordeaux's that are younger than 10 years to be not super drinkable. This is 8 years, and it's delight, right? So that's not a strong and fast rule, but that's kind of what I look for when I'm going in and tapping into a Bordeaux.
Fantastic.
Cool. Well, guys, an awesome bottle of wine to drink with you.
For sure.
Excellent.
Cheers.
Christo?
So, as usual, we're going to go out with 30 seconds of craziness. Awesomocity, Purple Limousine. Thanks a lot.
Woo!
Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Don't mind the passerby. Zapruder stock got us slides alive. We don't need any alibis for love. Don't mind the fare thee wells from the greeting card tabloid kiss and tells. The story is ours, the words are just for us. All we have to do is smile. We'll always be connected, puzzle pieces naked, making love a miracle miles. We'll never have to fake it, lost in every second. Rock